let's let us begin. Just a nice, beautiful daf today. Just to review, and I'm gonna, if you see the screen here, it just gives you a nice overview of what we just discussed so far. Basically, first of all, I want to point out to you that really Masechta Yuma should be after Rosh Hashana. Why we learned Yuma already, and now we did Sukkah, and now we're doing Rosh Hashana. It seems to be out of order. So I point out to you that the way Rabbeinu HaKadosh set up the Mishnayos was he did the harder parakim first, the Masechta with the most numerous parakim first, then he did Sukkah, and then he did Rosh Hashanah, which has 4 parakim. Hi, Alan. We're just discussing why Rosh Hashanah Yuma is coming before Yuma Sukkah come before Rosh Hashanah in the order of the way the Shas is written, the way we have it. And the answer, there's one answer is that when Rabbeinu HaKadosh put together the Mishnayos, he put it together that with the larger prakim, with the larger Masechtas first, and then this, next largest, and then Rosh Hashanah has 4. And Baba Kama, Baba Tzia, Baba Basra is considered 1. So don't ask from Sanhedrin. Those are that group is considered like 1 Masechta. Okay, just to review, we learned in the Mishnah that there are 4 Rosh Hashanahs: Aleph Nisan, Aleph Elul, Aleph Tishrei, and Shvat. Now, the Nisan is the Rosh Hashanah for the kings. That each Rosh Chodesh Nisan, a new year of the king is formed, even if the king took office like the 29th of Adar. And it comes Nisan time for Rosh Chodesh Nisan. One day he starts year 2, and the reason they did that was because they had to have a standardized way to determine whether a shtar choiv, let's say a loan, is it predated or postdated? Because if once you have a standardized way to determine the years of a king, so then you could automatically determine the order of the months. Hi, Sheldon.
Good evening. Good evening, bro.
Yeah, so we just started. So we're just reviewing where we are, and it's a beautiful daf. It'll go very quickly. Aleph Nisan, we said, was the Rosh Hashanah for the kings, and the reason why they standardized all Jewish kings to be Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, is in order to have a standardized method to determine the order of the months, so that we don't run into a problem to having a shtar predated or postdated. Now, the Gemara brought a source for that. How do you see that? Because when it describes the Shlomo HaMelech's kingdom, it juxtaposes it to Yetzias Mitzrayim. So it puts it very near each other. So just like Yetzias Mitzrayim, when we count the years from Yetzias Mitzrayim in the Chumash, it's Rosh Chodesh Nisan. That means the Jews left 15th day of Nisan. So when does it restart again? The following year was Nisan time, and a year later, it's always in Nisan. So also Jewish kings, and Shlomo HaMelech being a Jewish king, his years start and Rosh Hashanah, his anniversary, his New Year's are Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So now the Gemara asked, how do I know that Yetzias Mitzrayim you count from Nisan time? Perhaps the Jews left the 15th day of Nisan. Maybe by Tishrei already, we'd start year 2 from Yetzias Mitzrayim. How do we know that? No, it's a year. Rosh Chodesh Nisan is the new year counting for Yetzias Mitzrayim. So, and this is where we're up to. The Gemara says that in the Chumash it says that Aaron died and Rosh Chodesh Av, and this was the 40th year the Jews left Mitzrayim. Now, then the Torah says Moshe gave his farewell speech on Aleph Shvat, the 40th year that the Jews left Mitzrayim, same year. So it must have passed through Av, Elul, Tishrei, and nevertheless, Shvat, which is much later, the 11th month, it still calls it the 40th year. So it must be that the Rosh Hashanah for Yetzias Mitzrayim, counting 40 years, is not Tishrei or not anything in between Av and not anything in between Av and Shvat, not any of those months. And therefore, probably it's Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So that's where we're holding over here. So we're up to Daf Beis Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. Very simple. So the Gemara says, the Gemara says, Mimai. How do you know the Maaseh Av the Kodem, Dilma Maaseh the Shvat Kodem? Very good. Gemara's question is, your whole proof is based on the fact that Aaron died, and then Moshe gave his farewell speech in Shvat, right? Aaron died in Av, and Moshe gave his farewell speech in Shvat in Av. Maybe the Moshe gave his farewell speech in Shvat, right? And then in Av, later, Aaron died, and therefore the Rosh Chodesh, it passed Nisan. It's still the 40th year because the Shvat came first, then Av, and didn't pass Tishrei. So you don't really have a proof that the Yetzias Mitzrayim turns by Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Maybe because maybe Ma'aseh Shvat came first, not the story of Av with Aaron dying. So the Gemara says, Lo salta daitich. I cannot say such a thing. Aaron died first, and then Moshe gave his farewell speech. Diksiv. Moshe gives his farewell speech after the Jewish people destroyed the Sichain. So something happened after Aaron died that they destroyed Sichain. When Aaron died prior, Sichain was still around. So it must be that Av came first. And then the story of Shvat came later, Moshe Rabbeinu's speech. How do you know that Sichain was still around when Aaron died? The pasuk says, now we start Daf Gimel. Vayishma HaKanani Melech Arad. Kanani Melech Arad heard that Aaron died, right? That's what the pasuk says. As soon as Aaron died, Kanani, the king of Arad, died. What the Gemara is going to say is that this is a euphemism. Melech Arad is the king of is Sichain. The Sichain heard that Aaron died, and he came to attack. What did he hear? What did he hear that motivated Sichain to attack the Jewish people? So the Gemara says, Shama Shemeis Aaron. He heard that Aaron died, and the protection cloud was removed. When Aaron died, the protection cloud that was protecting the Jewish people just disappeared. Viksavar, and he held Nitna Rishus Lihilacham Yisrael. He was given permission now to war against the Jewish people. They're missing their protector, Aaron. Vahainu Diksiv, that's the pasuk that's right there. Vayiru kol ha'eda ki gavah Aaron. Vayiru means the whole Jewish people saw that Aaron died. I mean, you don't see when somebody dies. So what does this pasuk mean? Va'amar Rababo explains, Al tikru vayiru, don't read it vayiru, ela vayera'u. The Jewish people were seen, were able to be seen. Why? Ki gavah Aaron, because Aaron just died. And therefore, what the pasuk is telling you, in essence, that the clouds went up. And that's why the Jewish people became visible and sort of unprotected. And the word ki means because. Ki the Rish Lakish. Tamar Rish Lakish, ki, the word ki, mishamesh bedal l'shonis. It's like a word that has 4 different meanings. If they had a Hebrew dictionary, the word ki would have different meanings. Sometimes it means if. Sometimes it means dilma, maybe. Sometimes it means ella, only. And sometimes in Chumash it means daha, because. So here, in this context, the Jewish people were able to be seen. There was no cloud protecting them, ki, because gava Aharon. So the Gemara says, okay, I see that when Aaron died, Kanani, the king of Arad, was able to attack the Jewish people. But we're looking to see if Sichain was the one attacking the Jewish people, not Arad. Mi dami, that's the Gemara's question. Hasam Kanan, hacha Sichain. That pasuk says the word Kanan, Vayishma Kanani, and here we're trying to find if Sichain was alive. So Tana, Bryce answers the Gemara. Tana, the Bryce taught us, who Sichain, who Arad. Arad is Sichain. Who Canaan? He's this Canaan. So he has like 3 names to him. Sichain, he was called, the king was called, the people were called, or the king was called Sichain. Shadaima l'siyach bamidbar. He was similar to a fowl, a young horse in the desert, probably an untamed horse. He's like big, ADD, can't focus, or is always ready to jump and attack. Canaan, his name was Canaan, Hashem Achuse, because his kingdom, Sichon had in his kingdom a lot of Canaanim, Phoenicians. Umashmai, what is his real name by birth? Arad Shmai. His name was Arad. So when the pasuk says Vayishma HaKanani, Kanani heard Melech Arad, the king Arad. Arad is his real name, but he's also had a nickname called Sichon. So he was still around as Aaron died. So, and then the Chumash says the Jews went to war against him and destroyed him. And then Moshe gave his farewell speech. So it must be that Aaron died first, then Moshe gave his farewell speech. So that's another pshat, another version of what his name is. He's actually, his nickname was Arad. He's very similar to a wild mule, a wild donkey in the midbar, which is a very stubborn animal. Canaan, his name was Canaan, Hashem Achusai, because of his kingdom. Umar Shemoy, and what's his name? Is Sichon. His name was Sichon. So same idea, but it's all the same to teach you that Sichon was still around when Aaron passed on. And then when Moshe gave his farewell speech, the Chumash says in Shvat that he gave the farewell speech after Sichon was destroyed. So it must be that, and it's still the 40th year. So from the months of Av till the month of Shvat, there is no Rosh Hashana for Yetzias Mitzrayim. So that takes care of most of the months that between Av, Elul, Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, Teves, and Shvat are not Rosh Hashana for Yetzias Mitzrayim. So you want to say, so the Gemara first says attacks. Maybe, but you have no proof. Maybe the Rosh Hashanah for Yetzias Mitzrayim is Iyar. Be'emi Rosh Hashanah Iyar. Maybe Iyar is Rosh Hashanah for Yetzias Mitzrayim. Maybe that's the new year. So loy salka daitech, I cannot have that thought. The Chumash says this is the first month of the second year that the Jewish people left Mitzrayim, right? On the Rosh Chodesh Nisan was Hukam HaMishkan, the first time the Mishkan was put up. Uksiv, and says in the pasuk a little bit later, Uvahi ba'ashana hashenis b'chodesh hasheni na'al al Mishkan, that on the Rosh Chodesh year, on the second month of that year, it's still the cloud started to move and the Jews started to travel towards Eretz Yisrael. Now, it's obvious that Rosh Chodesh Iyar is not the Rosh Hashanah for Yetzias Mitzrayim because it still calls it the second year. When the Chumash was in Nisan, it calls it the second year the Jewish people left Mitzrayim. Then there's another story in Iyar, and it's second month, and it calls it the second year. The Rosh Hashanah lav Iyar here. So it must be that the Rosh Hashanah of Yetzias Mitzrayim is not Iyar. So the Gemara says, okay, maybe it's Sivan. Rosh Hashanah Sivan. Maybe it's Sivan. So the Gemara says, Lo salka daitech. I have no thought like that. Tiksiv. That the third month, when the Jewish people left Mitzrayim, this is by Matan Torah, Rosh Chodesh Sivan, right? Now, the Torah, if it's Rosh, if this is the third month that the Jews, basically they left in Nisan, 49 days later, they arrive at Har Sinai, right? And the Torah says just simply it was the third month. But the Torah doesn't say the year switched. If it's true that when Rosh Chodesh Nisan happens, then it's a new, the year switches. So and Rosh Chodesh Sivan is the Rosh Hashanah for Yetzias Mitzrayim. It should tell you that it's the third month of the year, but it's the second year from the Jews leaving Mitzrayim. It's because now is the Rosh Hashanah. So the Gemara proves that the Rosh Hashanah for Yetzias Mitzrayim is not Sivan. But the Gemara just knocks off Rabbi Yochanan's Be'ema Tammuz. Maybe it could be Tammuz. Be'ema Av, Be'ema Adar. You don't have any proof that the Rosh Hashanah for Yetzias Mitzrayim is Tammuz, Av, or Adar. You could only knock out a few of the months, but you don't really zero in on what the exact month of Yetzias Mitzrayim is the Rosh Hashanah of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So we need another source to tell you that you count Jewish kings from Rosh Chodesh Nisan. And Rabbi Yochanan's first source was a little on the weak side. So the Gemara brings you another source. Elo Amar Ablaza. How do I know a Jewish king you count from Rosh Chodesh Nisan? Mahacha, I have another pasuk. Vayochel livnois b'chodesh hasheni. They started building the first Beis Hamikdash, obviously Shlomo HaMelech, on Rosh Chodesh in the second month, which is Iyar. Basheni. What does this Basheni mean? This is an odd word. Basheni, the second. Second of what? Vishnas Abel Malchusai. On the fourth year of Shlomo HaMelech's kingdom. So what does Basheni mean? My Sheni. Lav Sheni Liyerach Shaboinim Malchusai. This was the second month that of the Rosh Hashana of his kingdom. That means if his Rosh Hashana of his kingdom is Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the Torah is telling, the Tanakh is telling you that this was the second month that we counted his new year. It is the second month following his new year. And so we see from there that the new year for a Jewish king is from Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So Maskif law Ravina asked the question, how do you know? Be'ema, maybe Sheni B'chodesh. Maybe it's the second month. Maybe this Basheni is teaching you it was Rosh Chodesh year. So the Gemara answers back the obvious, because it already says B'chodesh Hasheni. And came Sheni B'chodesh Behed Yahava Ksibei. It says it was, the Gemara's question is, not that, the Gemara's question, maybe it was the second day in the month. So the Gemara says, it should have said that it's the second day in the month. It just says the word Sheni. So the Gemara says Sheni b'Shabbos. Maybe the Tanakh is telling you it was a Monday. That's what it means. Sheni of b'Shabbos of the week. Chada, one answer to that is Ashkachan Sheni b'Shabbos. We never find throughout Tanakh that it'll give you a date, but it will never tell you what date it was. Let's say when the Jews left Mitzrayim, it'll never tell you it was a Thursday. The Chumash doesn't discuss days of the week. We can make a comparison between the second word Sheni and the first word Sheni. This Sheni to the B'chodesh Sheni. Ma Sheni Kama, just like the first one, it refers to Chodesh months because it says B'chodesh Sheni. Sheni Beis Rasra B'chodesh. It's referring to the month. So again, the proof is that the pasuk says Vayochel Livnois B'chodesh Hasheni. Shlomo HaMelech started building the Beis Hamikdash in the second month. Basheni, this is the second month of his new year. His new year begins Rosh Chodesh Nisan. This will be the second month following his new year. So here's a clear, sort of a clear pasuk that describes that Shlomo HaMelech's new year begin in Rosh Chodesh Nisan. The Gemara is not 100% satisfied with that because at the end of the day, all you see is Shlomo HaMelech's year anniversary is in Nisan. You don't see every Jewish king is that way. So that's why the Gemara now just brings a brisa that synthesizes both Rabbi Yochanan's pasuk and Rabbi Lazar's pasuk and say, we need both. Tanya Kavasa Rabbi Yochanan. We have a proof, a brisa that says exactly the source of Jewish kings you count from Nisan. How do you know you don't count for Jewish kings only from Nisan? And there's the juxtaposition is that, again, we saw this pasuk before, where it compares the Jewish people living Mitzrayim to the kingdom of Shlomo HaMelech. And therefore, Yitzias Mitzrayim is from Nisan, so also Shlomo HaMelech is from Nisan. What the Gemara the Brisa just repeated all this Gemara in a short version is a complete Brisa of what we learned on the Daf Beis till Daf Gimel. And basically, is the bottom line is that the source, we needed a source that a Jewish king is from Nisan. So basically, it's because of Shlomo HaMelech. There's a pasuk that says Shlomo HaMelech. We compare Shlomo HaMelech to the years of Shlomo HaMelech, the new year of Shlomo HaMelech to the new year of the Jewish people leaving in Mitzrayim. Just like Mitzrayim was from Nisan, Shlomo HaMelech, the Jewish kings are also, and Shlomo HaMelech is a Jewish king. We count from Nisan time. That's it.
Bernard, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Just maybe off topic, but on Anei Kavod, so basically Canaan or Sichon, found an opportunity when Aaron was nifter that the Anani Kavod left. That means he recognized that, and he couldn't see Bnei Israel because the clouds were covering. When did Amalek attack Israel?
Oh, so very good. Excellent question. Fabulous. In Chumash, in the Medrash, in the way, if you learn Chumash Rashi learns Vayishma HaKnani means Amalek came to attack. It wasn't Sichon coming to attack. And that's why Taisus points that out. The Medrash Aminan, the Hainu Amalek, if you see that over here, let me just bring that up better. Medrash as Amalek. So really, Amalek dressed up like the Sichon people. So it must be that the Sichon people were around. And in fact, is that Amalek changed. And the reason why they did that, by the way, is so the Jewish people will not pray correctly. If you see the people dressed up as somebody else, they'll pray, pray, please save us from the Canaanim. And really,
for the wrong people, for the wrong enemy.
Right.
Yeah, because it didn't make sense, because if that were the case, they would not be visible for Amalek.
Right. So now they're all saying it's the same story, and it really is Amalek. But that's not. So now the bottom line is we have a source for Jewish kings. So now we have the Daf Gimel Amud Aleph towards the bottom. Rab Chizda said, Lo Shanu Elo Malch Yisrael. For Jewish kings, for a Jewish king, we count from Nisan time, because a Jewish king should always remember that we left Mitzrayim, and just because you're the king, you remember that God took us out. Everyone out of Egypt, and he should not become haughty or something like that. For a Jewish king, we count from Nisan time. The Goyish kings, we count from Tishrei, from the creation of the world. So a Goyish king, there's a standard that their new year begins Tishrei times. For example, if Chav Tes Av, a Goyish king, took over, a month later, Elul by Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, that's their new year. Now I want to point out to you, just to make it very clear, so you get where the Gemara is going over here. Here you have over here, just basically very simple. There was a king called the first king of Persia that captured Babylonian, Daryavesh. He was a nice king, and after, as you know, Bavel destroyed the first base of English, Nebuchadnezzar. The media, the Hamadai, Daryavesh and Madai, and it was a joint kingdom between Madai and Paras, Persia. And the 1 year Madai took over, and then the next year Persia took over. So Kairesh, the king of Persia, took over and gave permission to the Jews to start building the second temple, not so far after they destroyed the first temple. And then Achashverosh took over, and then he put a stop work order on the base of English. So they put the foundation in, but it looked like a shul in Williamsburg where they couldn't finish it. So because of machlokes, so they stopped for many years. Then you had the Nes Purim, and then, I mean, I guess you could say Achashverosh and Esther had a child, Daryavesh. So technically he's Jewish, but he's not considered Jewish. So he's a Jew over a Goyish kingdom. So he gave permission to continue the construction after the continued construction of the temple, and in 3412 we're 57, the second temple was completed. Now Daryavesh originally is a good king because he's like the Trump. He gave permission to rebuild the second base of Mikdash. Then you have Ezra, who after the second base of Mikdash was built, he came up to be the leader of the Jewish people in Eretz Yisrael. And then things were still very, very bad there because of the Goyim. They didn't want the temple to be built or stay built. And so Nehemiah came to build the walls of the Yerushalayim, and he built up the walls of Yerushalayim. And then Nehemiah went back home. And then eventually the Greeks destroyed Persia. That's what we're just going to learn now. So it's very simple. So how do you know? The Gemara's discussion here is, how do you know that the Goyim kings you count from Tishrei? Because Shnema, it says like this: Divrei Nehemiah ben Chechlaya bahi b'chodesh Kislei shnas Esra. Nehemiah speaks words to the king, and this was in the Kislev, the 20th year. And it doesn't say 20th year of what, but Vahi ksiv vahi bechodesh Nisan shnas esrem lachashasta. So Achashasta is another name is Daryavesh. So there was Chodesh Nisan, and it's still the 20th year of this king Achashasta, which is Daryavesh or Koresh. Now, mid the Koi Kislev, it's the Kislev time, and the correlation as Esrim. It's the 20th year of his kingdom. This Goyish king, the Koi ben Nisan, the correlation as Esrim. And it's in Nisan, it's still called it the 20th year of Achashasta. By the way, Achashasta is I think is Achashverosh and Esther's son. So 20th year, it was Kislev and Nisan, and it's still the same year, Mechlal, the Rosh Hashana Lav Nisan, because Kislev, Teves, Shvat, Adar, Nisan, and still the 20th year of the kingdom. So it must be that the Rosh Hashanah for a Goyish king is not like a Jewish king Nisan time, it must be Tishrei time. So the Gemara says, the question is, the second pasuk says it's the 20th year of Achashastas, Artaxerxes' kingdom. But the first pasuk does not say it's the 20th year, it just says 20th year of anonymous. It doesn't say 20th year of what. So Dilma, we go to Amud Beis, Gimel Amud Beis, Dilma liminyone achrini. Maybe it's counted for another counting. How do you know it's Achashasta? Amar Papa, Shnas Esrim. There's a Gzeir Shava that like a Gilu Milsa. Ma Hassam, just like the second pasuk describes, it's the 20th year of Atachshasta's kingdom. Avhachas over here by Kislev, it's 20th year Lachatachshasta's kingdom. So again, basically we have a pasuk that says it's the 20th year of his reign in Kislev, and then it says in Nisan time, much later, that it's still the 20th year of his reign. And we must have passed through Nisan, and it's still the 20th year. So we see that Nisan is not the Rosh Hashanah for a Goyish king. So the Gemara asks, okay, that makes sense. But Mimmai, how do you know? The Maisi, the Kislev called them, Dilma Maisi, the Nisan called them. Maybe, how do you know Kislev came first, and then the Nisan story came first? Maybe the opposite happened. Maybe the story of Nisan came first, and Kislev came later. So you didn't go through the next Nisan. So maybe after Kislev, Tevish, Vad, Adar, Nisan, that's when he would turn 21. So who said Nisan passed in between Kislev and the story of Nisan? That could only happen if Kislev comes first and then Nisan happened. So the Gemara says, Loi salka daitach. It's not, don't think that way. So this is the story. You'll see much clearer what's going on over here. The Tanya we learned in a Braisa. Devarim she'amar Chanani leNechemia bekislev. Nechemia is like the wine steward of the king. Okay, he serves Achashverosh's son Daryavesh or Koresh or Achshasta. He serves him wine. He's a very close, like Mordechai was, right? So, but he's working in the office of the kingdom. And this Hanani comes to visit him in Kislev, and he tells him what's going on in Israel at that time. It's not good. Amra Nehemiah lamelech b'Nisan. So Nehemiah retold that to the king in Nisan. What's the Voram she'amar Hanani leNehemiah b'Kislev? What did Hanani tell Nehemiah in Kislev? Shneimar divrei Nehemiah ben Chachalalia. These are the words of Nehemiah. If you learn Nehemiah, this is the opening pasuk. There's the 20th year of the kingdom. As we explained, this Shnas Esrim is the 20th year. And I was in Shushan Abira. He's like Mordechai, right? He's the same person, not same person, but years later, he's serving his son. And he says, one of my brothers, Hanani, came, in a delegation from Judah, and I asked him, Al Yehudim, what's doing with the Jews in Israel? They told me on Ashar min Hashavi Sham Bamedina Barag Gedola of the Cherpa. They're in dangerous trouble over there, and degradation. The Chaimas Yerushalayim Mifai Ratzas, and the walls of Yerushalayim are breached. Usharer Nitzisu Be'esh, and the gates have been singed by fire. In other words, it's chaos there. So this is terrible, even though they have a Beis Hamikdash. Again, this is the 20th year. So the Beis Hamikdash was built, the second Beis Hamikdash was built in the 7th year of his reign. So years later, it's not easy. It's like It's like, Israel in modern times, where even though after independence, the War of Independence, we still had major wars. So this report, Amram Nehemiah Melech Benisan, months later, when Nehemiah had the opportunity to have a private conversation with the king about what's going on in Israel. And that came later. So Kislev came first and Nisan came later. Why? In other words, that the Pasuk tells you, Nehemiah is discussing that on the 20th year of his kingdom, I was his wine steward, and I carried wine, and I had a very sour face. So the king asked me, Madua panecha royim ba'ata ein chachayla. Why does your face look bad and you're not sick? Ein zeh ki im roya lev. It must be you're up to no good. Vo'ira harbe moed. Because what basically the Korash or Hashana was accusing him of trying to poison him. These people in Kings were very, very paranoid. So even though he liked Nehemiah, he thought that Nehemiah is trying to poison him just by looking at his face. I said the king, you should live forever. Why should my face not look bad? The burial place of my fathers are destroyed, and the gates have been destroyed in fire. What are you asking me to do? So basically, Nehemiah told the king what's going on in Israel. So in the middle of all this, while the king asked him, let me ask you, what is your request? I took a little silent prayer to God. So you see that sometimes in the middle of something, you can break away to just give a little prayer. And then I got back to the king. Give me the rights and the money, and send me with a delegation to Eretz Yisrael, and let me rebuild the city. Again, the temple is built, but the city is a dangerous place to live. The king told me, and this thing, the shegel, was sitting next to him. I don't know what shegel is, but we'll see that maybe tomorrow. How long are you going for? When are you coming back? And anyway, it doesn't say he answered that question. The king liked the idea, and I gave him a time, I'm coming back. So we see from there that Kislev came first, and then the story of Nisan came, and it's still considered the 20th year. So Nisan for sure is not, and any months in between Kislev and Nisan are for sure not the Rosh Hashana for a Goyish king. So the Gemara asks, Mosiv, Rabbi Yosef asked the question. It says, Bayoim Esr V'Abol L'Chodesh B'Shishi B'Shna Shtayim L'Daryavesh. Now, Daryavesh is another name also for Korash or Achashasta, which we'll see in a moment. This is the second year this is the 24th month. Now we're bringing psukim in Chagai that discuss the building of the first Beis Hamikdash, right? The building of the first Beis Hamikdash, of the second Beis Hamikdash, the first time. Remember this picture. Daryavesh in this, the son of Esther in 3406 gave permission and to start building the second Beis Hamikdash. Nehemiah was coming to much later to rebuild the city itself, but when he gave permission to build the Beis Hamikdash, that was the 6th year of his kingdom. Okay, and the pasuk describes that Daryavesh, and that means Bashishi in the 6th month. So that's Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Av. In the second B'Shna Shtayim Daryavesh ba. Oksiv Bashvi B'Esr Mechal Chodesh in the 7th month, which is Tishrei. It still calls it. It still doesn't say that it was the 2nd year, or it should have said that it became the 3rd year. It doesn't say anything. Then if it's true that a Goyish king, you count always from Tishrei, Bashvi, if you pass the 7th month, then the pasuk should say B'Shnas Gimel Mabayla. It turned into his 3rd year. So here is the same king, the Goyish Daryavesh, and passes through Tishrei, and we don't call it a Rosh Hashana. It doesn't switch the year. Amar Abao. So the Gemara is going to say a funny thing about this Daryavish. Kairash or Daryavish is Melech Kosher Haya. He's a kosher king. That's a play on the words. Kairesh is kosher. That means when he gave permission to build the temple, he was good. Lefichach manuloi kamalchi Yisrael. Originally, when he started his malucha, they counted him as if he's a Jewish king, like sort of like Lahavdil, like Trump. Well, not Lahavdil, but we say, oh, he's like a Jewish king. So that's how to respect him. They counted him like a Jewish king from Nisan. Later on, he switched and became sour and was not a good king. And therefore, they started counting him from Tishrei like a Goyish king. And then the first Gemara says, Maskiv Lor of Yosef Chada, then came Kashe Krayadari. After two psukim disagree with each other. You count him from Nisan like a Jewish king, but then it says, that the Beis Hamikdash was built on the 6th, completed on the 6th year of his kingdom, which is in the month of Adar. Utnanya, we learned in the Brisa, Ezra came up to Bavel, right, in the 7th year of his kingdom. So what happened is that the Beis Hamikdash was completed in Adar. Brisa says a year and change later, that means a year to Adar, and then Nisan time, Ezra comes to take over the leadership in Israel. Again, here, if that's the case, that means you pass through Nisan. You should actually say, you pass through twice Nisan, you should actually say it's the 8th year. Vim Isa, if Dar Yabesh, a Kairash, or whatever his name is a kosher king, Shnash Hashminis Mabayale, we should call it the 8th year. So the Gemara just wants to first clear this one up. First, you're calling him Kairish, and then you're calling him Daryavish. Tana, we learned in the Brisa, who Kairesh, his name is Kairish, who Daryavish, he has another name, Daryavish in Tanakh, who Achashasta, and his name is Achashashta. Kairish, Shemel Kosher. Kairish is the Jewish nickname, like because he was a kosher king. Achashashta, Ashem Achusta is because of the Persian. Another name for Persia is Artaxshasta. And what's his name? His original name from birth is Dayavishma. But the bottom line is, Makal Malkam Kasha. We have a stiris of psukim. One pasuk in Chagai thinks that we count his years from Rosh Chodesh Nisan. And then we have a pasuk in Ezra that seems to say that his Rosh Hashana is not Rosh Chodesh Nisan, but actually it's probably going to be Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. So what is he, a Jewish king or non-Jewish king? Rabbi Yitzchak, and this will end. Loi Kash, it's not difficult. The son of Achashverosh, of Esther, their child, call him a Jew or anything like that, and he gave the rights to build the first Beis Hamikdash. Then we count him as a Jewish king because he was nice. But then a year after it's built, he had like a change of heart. He wasn't so good to the Jews. So then we count him like a Goyish king from Tishrei. Kan koidim sheichmatz, before he soured, we count him like a Jewish king, and his Rosh Hashanah is Nisan. Kan, the psukim in Ezra, and beyond that, was la'acha shehechmitz, after he soured up and was no more considered to be a nice king. We started counting him from Tishrei. So we just learned two concepts today. Jewish king is Nisan, Goyish king, their anniversary is Tishrei, and that the son of Esther was semi-good.
Berno, I have a quick question. Referring back to, I hate to harp on this with Amalek, the fact that it was Amalek and not Sichon. So therefore, the whole thing of Rabbi Yochanan is basically very, very weak because it wasn't Sichon. And how do we know Sichon was alive if it was Amalek?
So that's what Tosfos points out, because Aval Makal Makin Dayak Shapir, we can say certainly Sichon was around, Havasicha Kayim, because Mideshina Amalek Atzmai Lovai Kudmusai, since they dressed up like Knanim and dressed up like Sichon. So therefore, even though since they must be around, because if they weren't around, why would Amalek dress like them?
Okay.
That's
in other words, knowing that, because if he was dead, he was dead. But if he's alive, he could dress up like him because thinking that everyone knew that he was alive.
Right.
Basically.
Right.
I see. Okay. Understood.
And Rashi and Chumash goes with with what you just said. That then it's not. The Gemara seems to say it's Sichon came to attack the Jewish people. But Rashi says this Kanani and is Amalek, like you said.
Okay, no, but I understand the idea that it could be Sichon was still alive. That was the whole idea that Yochanan said that Sichon was alive.
Right.
Okay, understood. Okay,
Okay.
Shkach.
Bez Hashem tomorrow.
Very good.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Good enough. Good enough.